Following the siege of Terra during the dying days of the Horus heresy, the traitor legions would eventually be driven one by one into the warp rift known as the Eye of Terror. Here, the traitor legions would eventually shatter, fragmenting into numerous warbands, with the Emperor's Children Legion remaining the most cohesive, a significant portion of the legion falling under the command of Chief Apothecary Fabius Bile. The remaining members of the Sons of Horus Legion would be hunted down by numerous other warbands out of spite for what would become known as the Chthonian failure, due to the Sons of Horus being the first legion to flee from Terra, as they sought to escape with the body of their fallen Primarch, Horus Lupercal. The Sons of Horus Legion's only hope for survival was for First Captain Ezekiel Abaddon, who had gone into a self-imposed exile, to return and take command of the Legion once more. Abaddon would eventually be found by a group of traitor marines, led by the Thousand-Sun sorcerer Iskandar Khayon, and the first captain of the Sons of Horus would eventually take his steps to not rebuild the Sons of Horus, but to construct an entirely new legion, where the bloodline of its recruits was of no consequence. This legion would eventually call itself the Black Legion. Since the founding of the Black Legion, Abaddon would lead numerous assaults against the Imperium known as Black Crusades, with the goal of testing and whittling down the Imperium's defences before launching a final assault to reach Terra in order to take control of the throne world of humanity and crown himself as the new Emperor of mankind. But if Abaddon manages to assault Terra, will this result in a victory for the forces of chaos? Or is this all going according to a plan orchestrated within the mind of the Emperor? Abaddon, unlike other Chaos Lords, is completely disinterested about the great game of the Chaos Gods, and similarly refuses to accept the patronage of any of the Chaos Gods, despite each of the Chaos Gods offering him gift after gift so that Abaddon may become their champion. In fact, Iskandar Khayon even claims that Abaddon's existed is dedicated to breaking the traitor legions free from the cycle of relying upon the ruinous powers.
He fights not for the Pantheon, those creatures that hate how they need him, nor does he care about their great game. He fights for himself, for his own ambitions, and for the brothers at his side. He fights for the legions cast aside by the Emperor. He cares about the Imperium we built with our blood, sweat, bolters, and blades, and he wants it back. He cares about returning to the godling that gave us life and seeing the Emperor bleed for all his failures.
What's also important to note is that Abaddon was also described as not being the same man he once was when he was found by Khayon and his associates. As detailed within the novel Talon of Horus, Abaddon, by his own admission, had found himself staring deep into the light of the Astronomicon, the beacon of light directed by the Emperor's own psychic power. Abaddon had stared into the light of the Astronomicon for so long that his eyes had been transformed into a radiant golden colour, seemingly in the search of enlightenment.
I looked into the Astronomicon for a long, long time, listening to its verses and choruses. The Emperor's light did this to me. No one ever said enlightenment came without cost.
Since the power and the song of the Astronomicon is guided by the Emperor himself, then it's always theoretically possible that the Emperor deliberately channeled a portion of such energy to exert a small measure of influence over Abaddon, due to his potential authority over the remainder of the traitor legions. So if Abaddon is theoretically being puppeted by the Emperor of mankind, then for what reason could the Emperor be doing this? One possibility is that the Emperor could be attempting to bring Abaddon to Terra in order to destroy the Emperor's mortal body. Currently, the Emperor is being kept in a state of undeath, thanks in part to the life support systems of the Golden Throne. We also know that the Emperor himself is a perpetual, an individual that can regenerate from death itself. However, since the Emperor is suspended within a state of undeath, this potentially means that he cannot regenerate from the wounds that were inflicted upon him by Horus Lupercal during the Siege of Terra. The Tech Priests of Mars are desperate in their actions of keeping the Golden Throne maintained to keep the Emperor biologically alive, due to being unaware of the Emperor's own perpetual nature, even going as far as to attempt to strike a bargain with the Drukhari of Camorra to keep the Golden Throne operational. Since the Emperor cannot rely upon his own subjects to simply pull the plug, as it were, due to any attempt on the Emperor's life being punishable by death thanks to the current political and religious ideologies of the Imperium, the Emperor, as a result, may be seeking to draw another into completing this act. If Abaddon leads a united force of the traitor legions to march upon Terra once more, this will also have the benefit of having the traitor marines having their numbers whittled down until they are effectively rendered extinct. What's important to note about the Astartes of the traitor legions is that they simply do not have the same luxury of being able to replenish their losses as easily as the Loyalists. While many Loyalist chapters have mutated and tainted gene seed stock, such as the Blood Angels, whose gene seed is affected by the Red Thirst and Black Rage, or the Black Dragons, who sprout bony growths and blade-like spines from their flesh, much of the Traitor Legion gene seed stock is afflicted by even worse mutation and degradation. This is due in part to the corrupting influence of warp space, which afflicts many members of the Traitor Legions with mutation, such as transforming their limbs into tentacles or even fusing them permanently to their armor. As such, gene seed that is in a stable enough condition for a traitor apothecary to implant into an aspirant is an incredibly rare and ultimately finite resource, which has led to more than one Chaos Space Marine warband to raid ships carrying gene seed tithes that were en route to the Sol system in order to replenish their own numbers. The novel Lucius the Faultless Blade even describes an incident where the Emperor's children apothecary Cesare extracts the progenoid gland of a warrior named Lubalia and becomes horrified that the organ had developed a lamprey-like mouth and even rudimentary limbs, forcing the apothecary to destroy the gene seed organ. This could also tie into the possibility of the Emperor's original plan for the Space Marines following the Great Crusade. The Emperor was infamous for his actions following the Unification Wars upon Terra, where during the aftermath he had his original legions of Thunder Warriors destroyed, as since their task was complete, he had no further use for them. Perhaps a similar event is currently unfurling, utilizing Abaddon and his Black Legion in what is effectively a false flag operation to not only weaken and destroy the remainder of the Legione Astartes, but to also slay the Emperor's mortal form so that he may regenerate back to his pristine glory. And in addition, conclude his plan by slaying the last few surviving Space Marines and beginning the final phase of his plan that the Emperor had been waiting to enact since the dawn of the Great Crusade. What the final stage of his plan is, however, we may never know for certain. Another possibility is that the Emperor would want Abaddon to destroy his physical form so that his essence may be released in its entirety, so that the Emperor may in fact ascend into becoming a fully fledged god, having gained this new and godly power which had built in intensity over the course of 10,000 years, thanks to the emotions and beliefs of the common citizenry of the Imperium, which in itself is thanks to the propagation of the imperial cult. While the Emperor had vehemently denied what the people perceived to be his divinity when he still walked among men, one cannot dismiss the potential possibility that it was all part of a long-standing plan by the Emperor himself for him to ascend to act as the guardian deity of humanity, to stand in opposition of the Chaos Gods upon equal terms. Having a mortal being, even one as powerful as the Emperor, ascending to godhood may seem unlikely, but it's not entirely outside the realms of possibility. Within Warhammer Fantasy, the necromancer Nagash had achieved apotheosis into fully fledged godhood, first ascending into becoming a monstrous lich after the death of his mortal form, and would eventually become the god of death itself during the events of the end times. There is a small problem with either of these possibilities, however. When Iskandar Khayon first began his search for Abaddon and the Sons of Horus flagship, the Vengeful Spirit, by travelling to an area of ice space known as the Radiant Worlds, the Astronomicon itself manifested a demonic servant of the Emperor known as Imperious, who attempted to dissuade Khayon from locating the ship. When Khayon stated that he and his followers would not be dissuaded from their mission, Imperious threatened to stop them.
The song's next verse will be fire and fury, not wisdom and mercy. It will come, not now, not soon, but in time and in force. The fate you seek to engineer cannot be allowed to come to pass.
Now, this seems to indicate that the Emperor did not want Abaddon to return to the material realm. But is this truly the case, or was it more simply a matter of not having Abaddon return until the Emperor's plan was ready to be carried out? But then again, since this message came from the avatar of the Astronomicon, then it could simply be a result of the primal consciousness of Imperious not wishing for the Emperor to be slain, due to the fact that the Astronomicon will be without a guiding hand, and thus could be acting in a purely selfish manner. What do you think? Is Abaddon being manipulated by the Emperor? Or is it too far-fetched? Leave a comment below, and thanks for watching.